You are going to get sick out here. You know that, right? The words leave Lily before she can second-guess them, half swallowed by the rain hammering the cracked plastic roof above the bus stop on Myrtle Avenue. The man looks up slowly, water dripping from his hair onto his collar, his jacket too thin for a night that has dropped into the low 40s, wind cutting sideways like it has somewhere to be. He does not answer at first, just studies her face as if deciding whether she is real or another person about to walk past him. A bus roars by without stopping, spraying a sheet of dirty water across the curb, the hiss loud enough to fill the silence between them. Lily shifts her weight, boots squeaking against the wet concrete, and tightens her grip on the small silver lighter in her palm, thumb tracing the engraved name without looking. Noah. The metal is cold, colder than her fingers. You can stand under here, she adds, softer now, nodding toward the narrow strip of dry space beside her. He hesitates, then steps closer, careful, like he is entering a place he does not belong. Up close, she notices his hands first, trembling slightly, knuckles pale, nails clean despite everything else about him looking worn down. Not drunk, not aggressive, just tired. Thanks, he says finally, voice low, rough around the edges but controlled. Not what she expected. The wind pushes another wave of rain against the shelter, rattling the loose panel above them. Somewhere down the block, a siren wails, rising and falling, then fading into the city's constant hum. Lily glances at the street clock, glowing faint green across the road. 11:40 p.m. 10 more minutes until her bus, if it even comes. She flicks the lighter once, not to light anything, just to hear the click, a small, sharp sound that grounds her. The flame jumps briefly, casting a warm flicker across his face before she snaps it shut again. His eyes follow the motion. Noah, he asks, nodding toward the engraving. Lily's jaw tightens for a fraction of a second, almost invisible. Just a name, she says, too quickly, then looks away, focusing on the rain streaking down the streetlight like lines on glass. A beat. Passes. The kind that stretches. You heading somewhere? She asks, not looking at him. Trying to, he replies. Wallet is gone. Phone is dead. I misjudged the weather. There is a hint of something else in his tone, something measured, like he is choosing each word carefully. Lily exhales through her nose, a thin stream of breath visible in the cold air. She reaches into her tote bag and pulls out a folded pair of hospital gloves, offers them without ceremony. Put these on. It helps a little. He takes them, surprised, then slips them over his hands. They do look slightly less red almost immediately. Another bus thunders past, again not stopping. Typical. Lily leans back against the metal pole, eyes closing for half a second, listening to the rain, the distant traffic, the soft rustle of the man adjusting the gloves. For a moment, the world narrows to this small rectangle of shelter, this shared silence. She should not care. She knows that. She learned that the hard way. But still, she shifts a few inches to give him more space under the dry patch. Bus is always late on nights like this, she mutters. He lets out a quiet breath that almost sounds like a laugh. Yeah, nights like this. The words hang there, heavier than they should be. If you are still here with us, take a second to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss what happens next. And I am curious, what time is it where you are watching from right now, and what city are you in? Lily opens her eyes again, staring out at the rain, thumb pressing into the lighter until it leaves a faint imprint on her skin, unaware that the man beside her is looking not at the street, but at her, memorizing everything. The bus never comes, and after another 15 minutes the street thins out until even the traffic sounds distant, like the city has pulled a blanket over itself and decided to ignore everything left outside. Lily checks the time again, jaw tightening, then exhales and pushes herself off the pole. I am not waiting another half hour for this, she says, more to the rain than to him. She hesitates, eyes flicking toward the man beside her, taking in the soaked shoulders, the way he is still holding himself upright more out of discipline than comfort. The hospital is 2 blocks down, she adds, nodding down the street. There is a covered loading bay, warmer than this. She does not wait for a response, just steps out into the rain, expecting him to either follow or disappear like most people do. After a second, she hears footsteps behind her, steady, matching her pace. The walk is short but loud, rain hitting asphalt, water sloshing underfoot, wind pushing against them like it is testing their resolve. When they reach the back entrance, the harsh white light spills out over concrete, and the smell shifts immediately. Antiseptic, faint bleach, something metallic under it. Lily stops just inside the overhang, shaking water from her sleeves, then gestures toward a stack of plastic crates. "You can sit there for a bit," she says. He does, lowering himself carefully, like every movement is measured. "You work here?" he asks, glancing at the badge clipped to her pocket. She flips it inward without thinking. "Yeah, night shift. A beat. Cleaning." He nods once, taking that in without comment. Somewhere inside, a door swings open and shut, voices echoing briefly, then gone. Lily leans back against the wall, crossing her arms, trying to ignore the way the light makes everything feel too exposed. Her thumb finds the lighter again. Click. A brief flame. Off. Click. "You ever notice," he says quietly, watching the small spark of light, "how places like this are always warm inside, no matter what it is like out here?" Lily lets out a short breath through her nose. "Depends who you are," she replies. He studies her, not pushing, but not letting the thought drop either. "What do you mean?" She looks past him, into the dim hallway beyond the service door, where a mop bucket sits half full, wheels squeaking when someone moves it too fast. For a second, the present blurs, replaced by a memory she never quite escapes. Same hallway, same lights. A man sitting on the floor, back against the wall, jacket too thin, shoes worn through at the soles. He had not been loud. That is what she remembers most. No yelling, no scene, just a quiet voice asking if someone could take a look at his chest, saying it hurt to breathe. She had stood there, keys in hand, radio crackling at her hip, and told him to go to intake like everyone else. Protocol. Insurance first. Always. He had nodded, like he understood rules better than most, and tried to stand. He did not make it far. Lily presses the lighter harder into her palm until the edge bites into her skin. "Nothing," she says, too flat. "Just how it is." The man across from her does not answer right away. Instead, he looks down at his hands, flexes his fingers inside the thin gloves she gave him. "You always work nights?" he asks. "Easier," she says. "Less people, less eyes, less chances to see something she should not ignore." A gurney rattles past somewhere deeper in the building, wheels clacking over a seam in the floor, followed by the low murmur of a nurse giving instructions. Lily pushes off the wall. "Stay here. I am going to grab something." Before he can respond, she slips through the service door, moving down the hallway with practiced efficiency. The hospital at night has its own rhythm, softer but sharper in places, like every sound matters more. She stops by a supply closet, grabs a thin thermal blanket still sealed in plastic, hesitates, then reaches for a second one. On her way back, she passes the intake desk. A young guy stands there, soaked, arguing quietly with the receptionist about a form he does not have. Lily slows for half a second, just enough to hear the familiar line, "I cannot process you without insurance information," then keeps walking. Her shoulders tighten, but she does not stop. Not this time. Not again. Or maybe still the same. When she returns, she tosses one of the blankets toward him. He catches it, surprised, then unwraps it, the metallic material crinkling loudly in the quiet space. "Thanks," he says. She shrugs, already turning away. "It is standard issue. Do not read into it." He almost smiles at that, just barely. She pulls the second blanket around her own shoulders, though she does not need it as much, and slides down to sit on the concrete across from him, leaving a careful distance between them. For a moment, neither speaks. The rain continues beyond the edge of the overhang, steady, relentless. "You did not have to come back out," he says after a while. "Most people would have just gone inside." Lily stares at the ground, at a small puddle forming near the drain, watching the ripples distort the reflection of the overhead light. "Yeah," she says quietly. "Most people would have." Her fingers tighten around the lighter again, the engraved name pressing into her skin, as if reminding her of the version of herself she is still trying to outrun, even as she sits just a few feet from someone who might need more than a dry place to wait out the rain. The crinkling of the thermal blanket settles into a soft, irregular rhythm, matching the faint hum of the overhead light, and for a while the only movement between them is the slow rise and fall of breath in the cold air that still lingers under the overhang. Lily keeps her eyes on the shallow puddle near the drain, watching a loose drip from the roof hit the surface in uneven intervals, each ripple breaking apart the reflection above it. Her hand shifts slightly, and the lighter slips from her grip, landing against the concrete with a sharp metallic click that cuts through the quiet. It is louder than it should be. Both of them look down at it at the same time. He reaches it first, not quickly, not like he is trying to claim it, just naturally, picking it up between his fingers and turning it once, the engraved side catching the light. "You carry this for the sound or the name?" he asks, not handing it back right away. Lily does not answer immediately. She pushes herself up a little straighter against the wall, brushing damp hair away from her face, buying time in a way that feels almost practiced. "Give it back," she says, not sharp, but not soft either. He studies it for another second, then flicks it open, careful, the flame steady despite the draft, illuminating the letters clean and precise. Noah. The name hangs there between them longer than the flame itself. He closes it and passes it back without comment, but something in his expression has shifted, just slightly, like a piece of a puzzle has found its edge. Lily takes it, slower, this time, and does not pocket it. Instead, she rolls it between her fingers, feeling the shallow grooves of the engraving, the slight dent along one corner where it had been dropped years ago. "It was not mine," she says finally, eyes still on the lighter. "I just never gave it back." The words sit heavy, not quite a confession, not quite a deflection. He leans forward a little, elbows resting on his knees, the thin blanket rustling as he moves. "You knew him?" he asks. Lily lets out a quiet breath, something close to a laugh, but without humor. "That depends on what you mean by knowing someone." Another pause stretches, but this one feels different, less like avoidance and more like something being measured. She flicks the lighter again, watching the flame steady itself. "He came in one night," she continues, voice lower now, almost blending into the background noise of the hospital. "Sat right about there." She nods toward the hallway behind the service door, where the light spills out in a sterile line. "Said he was having trouble breathing." Her thumb presses down, the flame wavers. "No insurance. No paperwork. Just him." The flame snaps out as she closes the lid, the darkness returning in a small, immediate shift. She does not look at him when she keeps speaking. "There are rules," she says. "You follow them, you keep your job. You break them, you do not." He does not interrupt, but his gaze stays on her, steady, waiting. "I told him to wait," she adds. "To go through intake like everyone else." A beat. "He tried." That is all she says, but the rest fills the space anyway, unspoken, heavy in the way silence sometimes carries more weight than words. Somewhere inside, a machine beeps in a slow, consistent pattern, the sound threading through the moment like a reminder of something neither of them names. He shifts again, leaning back slightly, eyes drifting toward the hallway she had pointed to. "And the lighter?" he asks, careful, like he already knows the answer matters more than the question. Lily finally looks at him, just for a second, then back at the metal in her hand. "He dropped it," she says. "Or maybe I picked it up. I do not remember that part." Her fingers tighten around it. "I just remember it was still warm." The words land quietly, but something in them echoes longer than expected. The rain outside has softened, no longer pounding, just a steady fall that sounds almost distant now. The space between them feels smaller, though neither has moved closer. He nods once, slow, absorbing more than he lets on. "So you kept it," he says. "Yeah." She turns it over again, thumb tracing the name. "I figured someone should." Another silence follows, but it is not empty. It hums with something unresolved, something that has not yet surfaced but is already shaping the way they sit there. Two strangers sharing a space that feels less accidental by the second. He watches her for a moment longer, then glances down at his gloved hands, flexing his fingers again, as if grounding himself in the present. "You ever think about giving it back?" he asks, tone neutral, almost casual, but not quite. Lily's jaw shifts, barely noticeable. She flicks the lighter one more time, the flame catching instantly, steady, unwavering this time. "Every day," she says. Then she closes it, the click sharper now, final in a way that suggests the question does not have a simple answer, and maybe never will. By the time Lily stands, the rain has thinned into something lighter, almost polite, tapping instead of pounding, and the clock inside the hallway reads 12:18 a.m. in dull red digits that make everything feel later than it should be. I have to get back, she says, pushing off the concrete, brushing her hands against her jeans as if that alone could reset the moment. He nods, not arguing, already pulling the thermal blanket tighter around his shoulders. Thank you, he says again, but this time it lands differently, less like politeness and more like something he is choosing to remember. Lily does not respond right away. She slips the lighter into her pocket, deeper this time, then pauses at the door, one hand on the handle. They usually clear this area around 2, she adds without turning. Security does rounds. Just so you know. It is not an invitation, not exactly a warning either. Just information. He gives a small nod. I will. Figure something out. She studies him for a second longer than necessary, like she is weighing whether to say more, then shakes it off and steps inside, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft but final click. The hallway swallows her quickly, fluorescent lights flattening everything into routine. Mop bucket. Supply cart. The distant squeak of sneakers on tile. It is easier in here, where everything has a place and a rule attached to it. She moves through her shift the way she always does, methodical, quiet, replacing trash bags, wiping down surfaces, avoiding eye contact when she can. At 1:07 a.m., she passes intake again. The same desk. A different person behind it. The chair where the man had once sat is empty, but her eyes still drift there for a fraction of a second, like muscle memory she cannot override. She keeps walking. Around 2:03 a.m., as she wheels her cart toward the service hallway, she notices the door slightly ajar, not wide, just enough to let a thin line of cold air slip inside. That should not happen. She slows, hand tightening on the cart handle, and nudges it open with her shoulder. The loading bay is empty. No crates moved, no blanket left behind. Just the faint outline of where someone had been sitting, marked by a dry patch that is already fading. She steps out a little farther, scanning the edges of the overhang, the shadows near the dumpsters, but there is no one there. Of course there is not. People leave. That is what they do. Still, she stands there a second longer than she needs to, listening to the quiet, noticing how different it feels without the weight of another person sharing the space. Then she exhales, turns back inside, and pulls the door closed behind her, making sure it latches this time. Her shift ends at 5:42 a.m., the sky outside just beginning to shift from black to a dull, early gray. She clocks out, signs her name with the same pen that barely works, and steps out onto the street with her hood up, the air sharper now that the rain has passed. The city is waking up in small, reluctant ways, a delivery truck idling at the corner, a man unlocking a gate across the street. Lily walks past the bus stop without slowing. There is no reason to stop. The shelter looks the same as it always does, scratched plastic, old ads peeling at the corners, no trace of the night before except maybe the faint dampness still clinging to the ground. She keeps going. The next 3 days blur together in the way night shifts tend to, sleep broken into uneven pieces, meals skipped or replaced with whatever is left in the break room fridge, the constant low hum of the hospital threading through everything. She tells herself she is not thinking about it. About him. About the lighter in her pocket that she keeps touching without realizing it. On the 4th night, everything changes in a way that does not feel dramatic at first. It starts with a memo taped crookedly near the time clock, printed on heavier paper than usual. Staff meeting. Mandatory. All departments. 11:30 p.m. Conference room B. Lily frowns at it for a second, then glances around at the others clocking in. A nurse shrugs. New management, I think, she says, not particularly interested. They said something about restructuring. Lily nods, already half turned away. Meetings mean standing too long, listening to people who do not notice you anyway. Still, at 11:27 p.m., she finds herself in the back of conference room B, arms crossed, leaning against the wall near the door. The room smells faintly of coffee and something sweet, like someone tried to make it feel less like a hospital and more like an office. People filter in slowly, voices low, tired. Then the door at the front opens, and the tone shifts without anyone saying why. A man steps in, followed by 2 others in suits that do not belong in a place like this at this hour. The first thing Lily notices is the way everyone else straightens, subtle but immediate, like they recognize something she does not. The second thing she notices is his posture, familiar in a way she cannot place at first, until he turns slightly under the fluorescent lights and she catches the angle of his face, dry now, composed, nothing like the version of him she had seen under the overhang. The room settles into silence as he steps forward, setting a folder on the table with a quiet, deliberate motion. "Good evening," he says, voice steady, clear, carrying easily without being loud. Lily does not move, but something in her chest shifts, sharp and unexpected, as recognition catches up all at once. Not gentle, not gradual, just there. He looks across the room briefly, scanning faces, and for a fraction of a second his gaze lands on hers. Not lingering, not calling attention, just enough to confirm what she is already realizing. "My name is Ethan Blake," he continues, as if the name alone explains everything. "And as of this week, I oversee operations here." The words settle over the room, but Lily barely hears the rest, her attention narrowing, every small detail rearranging itself in her mind. The rain, the gloves, the way he had held the lighter, the questions that had not felt like questions at the time. She shifts her weight against the wall, fingers brushing against her pocket where the lighter rests, suddenly heavier than it has ever been, as if it knows something she does not yet fully understand, but is about to. The meeting breaks apart in uneven waves, chairs scraping softly against the floor, low conversations picking up as people try to make sense of what just shifted without warning. But Lily stays where she is for a second longer, back still against the wall, arms folded tighter than before, as if holding something in place. Ethan does not rush off like the others expect. He lingers near the front, answering a few questions with measured patience, his tone consistent, controlled, nothing like the man who had been sitting on a plastic crate 3 nights ago with rain dripping from his sleeves. It would be easier if he acted different, if there were a clear line between those two versions, but there is not. That is what unsettles her. When the room finally thins out, she pushes herself off the wall and heads for the door, planning to disappear back into the rhythm of her shift before anything else can happen, but she does not make it far. "Lily." Her name lands quietly, not loud enough to turn heads, but enough to stop her. She pauses, hand on the door handle, then turns halfway, not fully committing. He has stepped down from the front of the room, closer. Now, but still leaving space between them, like he understands distance better than most. "Do you have a minute?" he asks. It sounds simple, but there is something deliberate under it, like he is asking for more than time. She considers saying no. It would be easy, safer. Instead, she gives a small nod. "I have a shift," she says, not moving closer. "So do I," he replies, almost a mirror, though his version looks different. He gestures toward the hallway. "Walk with me." It is not a command. That matters. She hesitates, then pushes the door open and steps out, forcing him to fall into pace beside her rather than the other way around. The hallway feels narrower now, the fluorescent lights harsher after the dimmer room, and for a few seconds neither of them speaks. Their footsteps echo slightly, out of sync at first, then settling into a rhythm that feels almost accidental. "You move through this place like you know every corner," he says finally, glancing at the cart she left parked against the wall earlier. "I should. I clean most of them," she replies, not looking at him. There is a trace of dry humor in it, but it does not linger. He nods, taking that in without trying to soften it. "You were right about the rounds," he adds after a moment. "Security came through around 2. I was already gone." She stops walking for half a second, just enough to register the words, then keeps moving. "Good," she says. "They do not like people hanging around." The sentence sits between them, heavier than it should be, because it could mean more than one thing. They reach the end of the hallway where it opens into a quieter wing, one that is mostly administrative offices and a small break room that always smells faintly of burnt coffee. Ethan slows, glancing toward the door, then back at her. "Can I?" he asks, gesturing toward it. Lily shrugs, pushing it open without waiting, stepping inside. The room is empty, a single overhead light buzzing faintly, a half-empty pot of coffee on the warmer that has probably been sitting there for hours. She moves to the counter, pours some into a chipped mug without asking if he wants any, then sets it down near him before leaning back. against the opposite counter, arms crossing again. He takes the mug, not drinking right away, just holding it like it gives him something to do with his hands. You did not look surprised, he says, finally meeting her eyes. Lily tilts her head slightly. About what? She asks, even though she knows. About me, he answers. She lets out a quiet breath, something between a scoff and a laugh. People do not usually sit in the rain for fun, she says. I figured there was more to it. It is not entirely true, but it is close enough to pass. He studies her for a moment, like he is deciding how far to go. And you still brought me here, he says. Not a question. She glances down at her hands, at the faint indentation the lighter leaves against the fabric of her pocket. I did not bring you anywhere, she replies. I just did not leave you out there. He nods slowly, accepting the distinction. A silence settles, but it is not empty. It feels like something waiting to be acknowledged. He finally takes a sip of the coffee, winces slightly at the temperature, then sets the mug down. You said it was not yours, he says, voice quieter now. Lily's shoulders tighten, almost imperceptibly. What? She asks, though she knows exactly what he means. The lighter, he says. You said you never gave it back. He does not push further, just lets the statement exist. Lily looks past him, toward the small window above the sink where the glass reflects more of the room than the outside. For a second, she sees herself the way someone else might. Tired, guarded, holding on to something she cannot explain without opening a door she keeps closed for a reason. People leave things behind all the time, she says. Most of it ends up in lost and found. Some of it does not. He watches her, the way her gaze avoids the direct line of the question, the way her fingers press lightly against her pocket as if checking that the object is still there. You kept that one, he says. Again, not a question. She nods once, small. Yeah. He shifts his weight, leaning back slightly against the counter, mirroring her posture without making it obvious. Why? He asks, and this time there is something different in his tone, not curiosity exactly, something closer to intent. Lily takes a breath, then another, like she is deciding how much of the truth can fit into a sentence without breaking it open completely. Because I was there, she says. The words are simple, but they carry more than they should. He does not respond right away. Instead, he lets the silence stretch just long enough for it to settle between them, not uncomfortable, but charged. And that matters to you, he says finally. She gives a slight shake of her head, like she is correcting something invisible. It should have mattered more, she replies. The admission is quiet, almost swallowed, but it lands with weight. Ethan's expression shifts, not in a way that draws attention, just a subtle tightening around the eyes, a recognition that goes deeper than the words themselves. He looks down at the mug again, then back at her. You still work nights, he says, as if connecting pieces that are not laid out in a straight line. Less people, she repeats, echoing what she said before, but this time it sounds different, like there is more behind it than convenience. He nods, understanding without needing it spelled out. Outside the break room, a cart rattles past, the sound briefly filling the space before fading again. Lily pushes off the counter, straightening slightly. I should get back, she says, not looking at him this time. He does not stop her. Lily, he says again, softer. She pauses at the door, not turning fully. You did not leave him, he adds, the sentence carefully chosen, not quite a statement, not quite reassurance. She stands there for a second, hand on the handle, the lighter pressing into her pocket like a pulse she cannot ignore. I did not stay either, she replies, then opens the door and steps out into the hallway, leaving him in the quiet hum of the room with a truth that feels incomplete on purpose, as if the rest is still waiting to be said when neither of them is quite ready to hear it. The hallway feels different when Lily steps back into it, like the air has shifted just enough to make everything sharper, more defined, and she moves through it faster than before. Pushing her cart with a little more force than necessary, wheels rattling softly over the seams in the tile. She does not look back, not at the break room, not at him. The routine should take over, and for a while, it does. Trash bags replaced, surfaces wiped, the quiet rhythm of night work wrapping around her like something familiar. But it does not settle the way it usually does. Every few minutes, her hand drifts to her pocket, pressing against the lighter as if confirming it is still there, still solid, still something she can hold on to. Around 1:46 a.m., She finds herself near the older wing again, the one most staff avoid unless they have to. The lights here are dimmer, some flickering slightly, and the hum of the building feels louder, like it is filling in for the lack of people. She slows as she passes the intake corridor, not stopping, just enough to glance toward the chair she never quite ignores. Empty like always. She exhales and keeps moving, but before she reaches the corner, she hears it, a voice, low, measured, coming from one of the offices just off the hallway. She would not normally pay attention, but there is something familiar in the cadence. She stops without meaning to, the cart rolling an extra inch before she steadies it with her hand. The office door is not fully closed. A narrow gap lets the light spill into the hall, along with the quiet exchange inside. Pull the records from that night. Ethan is saying, his voice different now, not softer, just more precise. Intake logs, security footage, anything that still exists. There is a pause, another voice responding, something about archived systems and limited access. Lily does not catch all of it, but she does not need to. Her grip tightens on the cart handle. The lighter presses harder against her pocket. Focus on anyone who interacted with him before he was moved. Ethan continues. He was not invisible. Someone saw him. The words land in a way that feels directed, even though she knows they are not meant for her. Not yet. She steps back instinctively, the movement small, but enough to shift her out of the line of the door. Her pulse picks up, not fast, just steady and heavy like. Something is aligning that she has spent years keeping separate. She could walk away. That would be the easiest thing. Instead, she stays where she is, just outside the edge of the light, listening to the quiet shuffle of papers, the low exchange of details that feel too close to something she has never said out loud. After a moment, the second voice fades, footsteps moving away, and then there is silence. Lily waits, not sure what she is waiting for, until the door opens the rest of the way. Ethan steps out, stopping when he sees her standing there. The cart, the stillness, all of it too deliberate to pass as coincidence. Neither of them speaks right away. The distance between them is only a few feet, but it feels heavier than that, like something unseen is holding it in place. You were listening, he says finally, not accusing, just stating what is obvious. Lily does not deny it. Hard not to, she replies, her voice even, though her fingers tighten slightly around the cart. He studies her for a second, then nods once, as if confirming something he already suspected. I was going to find you anyway, he says. That shifts something. Not the words themselves, but the way he says them, like this was never going to stay contained to a hallway conversation. Lily's jaw sets, not defensive, just bracing. About what? She asks, though the answer is already forming. He does not step closer. He does not need to. Noah, he says, the name quiet but unmistakable. It lands differently coming from him here. In this place, under this light. Lily's hand moves without thinking, pressing against her pocket, the outline of the lighter suddenly too clear, too real. She does not look away this time. You already know about him, she says, not a question. Ethan holds her gaze, steady, unflinching. I know enough, he replies. There is a pause, one that stretches just long enough to make the next part matter. He was not just another patient to me. The words are simple, but there is something underneath them, something that shifts the balance of everything that has come before. Lily's breath catches, just slightly, not enough to be obvious, but enough to change the rhythm of it. What does that mean? She asks, quieter now. Ethan's expression does not change much, but his eyes do, just enough to show that this is the part he has not said out loud yet. It means I have been looking for answers for a long time, he says. Not accusation, not anger, just fact. The hallway feels narrower, the light harsher, the space between them thinner in a way that makes it harder to pretend this is still just a conversation between strangers. Lily shifts her weight, the cart wheels squeaking softly under the movement. And you think I have them, she says. He does not answer right away. Instead, he glances briefly at her pocket, the small, almost invisible movement enough to tell her exactly what he has already connected. When he looks back up, there is no hesitation left. I think you were there, he says. It is not a reveal in the way people expect, no raised voices, no sudden shock, just a quiet alignment of truth that has been circling them since the moment she let him stand under that broken shelter. Lily exhales slowly, the sound barely audible, and for the first time, She does not try to deflect it. She does not try to soften it. She just stands there, the weight of it settling in, knowing that whatever comes next is not going to stay in the past, where she has kept it all this time. For a few seconds, neither of them moves, and the hallway holds the silence like it is waiting for one of them to break it, but Lily does not look away this time, not even when the weight of his words settles fully into place. Her hand slips into her pocket, fingers closing around the lighter, not pulling it out, just holding it there like an anchor she is not ready to let go of. "You should not be doing this," she says finally, her voice steady but lower than before. Ethan's brow tightens slightly, not in confusion, more in recognition of the direction this is about to take. "Doing what?" he asks, though he already knows. Lily shifts her weight, stepping away from the cart now, creating a different kind of distance between them, one that is less physical and more deliberate. "Digging through records, pulling people in," she says. "You are not going to find what you think you are looking for." He studies her carefully, the way he has since the beginning, but this time there is something firmer behind it. "And what do I think I am looking for?" he asks. She lets out a quiet breath, eyes flicking past him for a moment before settling back. "Someone to blame," she says. "Something clean. A moment where everything went wrong and you can point at it and say that is why." The words land without accusation, but they carry weight. Ethan does not respond immediately. He takes a step to the side, not closer to her, just enough to shift the angle between them, like he is trying to see her from a different perspective. "That is not what this is," he says. Lily's lips press together slightly, not convinced. "It always is," she replies. "Maybe not at first, but it gets there." A cart rattles faintly in the distance, the sound echoing down the corridor before fading again. Ethan glances toward it briefly, then back at her. "You think I am here to punish someone?" he says. It is not framed as a question, but there is room for her to answer. She does not hesitate. "I think you do not know what you are going to do when you find the answer," she says. That lands differently. It is not defensive. It is observational, and it carries its own kind of certainty. Ethan's jaw shifts, subtle but visible. "I know what happened," he says, quieter now. "I know he came here. I know he asked for help." His gaze holds steady on hers. "And I know he did not get it." Lily's grip tightens around the lighter, the edges pressing into her palm. She nods once, slow, not arguing the facts. "That is true," she says. The simplicity of it removes any space to soften it. The hallway feels narrower again, the air heavier. "So what happens next?" she adds, lifting her eyes fully to meet his. "You find the person who followed the rules? You decide they should have broken them." There is no sarcasm in her voice, just a direct line drawn between two choices that do not resolve easily. Ethan does not answer right away. He shifts his weight, hands settling at his sides, the controlled posture slipping just enough to show the tension underneath. "Rules are not the problem," he says. "People hiding behind them are." Lily lets out a short breath, something almost like a laugh, but without humor. "That is easy to say when you are the one who gets to rewrite them," she replies. The words are sharper now, not raised in volume, but more defined. He takes that in, not pushing back immediately. "You think this is about control?" he says. She tilts her head slightly. "Is it not?" There is a pause, longer this time, the kind that forces both of them to sit in what has already been said. Ethan looks down the hallway for a moment, as if measuring the space, then back at her. "It is about not letting this happen again," he says. Lily's expression does not change much, but something in her eyes shifts, something that has been there since the beginning, just under the surface. "Then you are going to have to decide what matters more," she says quietly. "The system working the way it is designed, or the people it fails when it does." He holds her gaze, the weight of that settling in. "And you?" he asks. "What did you decide?" That lands harder than anything else so far. Lily does not look away. Her hand comes out of her pocket slowly, the lighter still closed in her palm, the metal catching a faint line of light. She turns it once, then stills it. "I decided to follow the rules," she says. There is no defense in it. No excuse. Just a statement. A beat passes. And I live with that. The words sit between them, heavier than any accusation could be. Ethan's expression tightens slightly, not in anger, but in something more complicated, something that does not resolve cleanly. "That is not the same as being okay with it," he says. Lily's thumb presses against the edge of the lighter, just enough to feel the ridge of the engraving beneath the metal. No, she agrees. It is not. Another silence follows, but this one is different. It is not empty or uncertain. It is defined, shaped by two people standing on opposite sides of the same moment, both understanding it, both refusing to simplify it. Ethan takes a small step back, not retreating, just creating space where there had been none. I am not looking for someone to punish, he says. Finally, Lily watches him, her expression unreadable for a second. Then what are you looking for? She asks. He meets her eyes, steady, direct. Someone who will tell me the truth, he says. The hallway seems to hold that answer, stretching it out, making it larger than the words themselves. Lily looks down at the lighter in her hand, then back up at him. For a moment, it seems like she might say something more, something that would tip the balance one way or the other. Instead, she closes her fingers around the metal, tucks it back into her pocket, and steps past him, her shoulder brushing just close enough to register without stopping. Be careful what you do with it when you get it, she says as she moves down the hallway. She does not look back this time. Ethan remains where he is, watching her disappear around the corner, the echo of her footsteps fading into the quiet, leaving behind a question that no longer feels abstract, but immediate, and far more difficult to answer than he had expected. The hallway feels quieter after she disappears, but not empty. Not really. Just holding on to what was said like it has not decided where to put it yet, and Ethan stays there longer than he needs to, eyes fixed on the corner she turned, as if something might shift if he waits long enough. It does not. By 2:30 a.m., the hospital settles deeper into its night rhythm, the kind that makes everything feel suspended between decisions, and Lily moves through it with a different pace now, less automatic, more deliberate, like each step has weight she cannot ignore. She finishes one corridor, then another, but her mind keeps circling back, not to his words, but to the question underneath them, the one she did not answer. Around 3:12 a.m., she reaches the intake desk again, this time stopping fully instead of passing through. The receptionist looks up briefly, surprised to see her linger. Everything okay? He asks. Lily nods once, then glances at the computer screen, at the intake system she has avoided for years. Can you pull archived entries? She asks, keeping her voice even. He shrugs. Depends how far back. Most of it is locked unless admin signs off. Lily nods again, like she expected that, then steps away without pushing further. The rules. Always the rules. She turns down the hallway, moving faster now, cart abandoned where it stands, the decision forming not in words, but in motion. She heads for the administrative wing, badge clipped to her pocket, knowing it will not be enough. The door to the records office is locked, like it should be. She stands there for a second, staring at it, then reaches into her pocket, not for a key, but for the lighter. The metal is colder now, or maybe her hand is warmer. She turns it once, thumb resting over the engraved name, then exhales slowly, like she is aligning something inside herself. The memory does not come back as a blur this time. It is clear. The hallway, the man sitting on the floor, the way he had not raised his voice, the way she had chosen not to stay. Lily closes her eyes for half a second, then knocks on the door. Not loud, just enough. It takes a moment, but eventually it opens, a tired supervisor peering out, confused. We are closed, he says. Lily nods. I know, she replies. I need access to intake logs from 3 years ago. He frowns, already shaking his head. That is not happening without authorization. She does not argue, does not explain. Instead, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out the lighter, holding it up, not like evidence, not like proof, just placing it between them in a way that feels heavier than it should. His name was Noah, she says. The supervisor's expression shifts slightly, not recognition exactly, but enough to pause the automatic refusal. I was there, she adds, the words steady, no room left for deflection. And I did not do anything. The hallway behind her stays quiet, the hum of the building filling in the silence that follows. The supervisor looks at her for a long second, weighing something that is not written in any policy. You are going to want admin present for something like this, he says finally. Lily nods. Then call him, she replies. No hesitation. No step back. The risk is there, clear, immediate. Her job, her position, everything tied to it. She does not move. Minutes pass. A call is made. Footsteps approach. And Then Ethan is there, drawn not by coincidence, but because this is where everything has been leading. He takes in the scene quickly, the open door, the supervisor, Lily standing there with the lighter in her hand, not hiding it anymore. Their eyes meet, and for the first time, there is no distance in it, no deflection, just recognition. I requested those records, he says to the supervisor, voice controlled. The man nods. She did too, he replies, stepping aside slightly. Ethan looks back at Lily, something shifting in his expression, not surprise, but something close to respect, or maybe something heavier. You do not have to do this here, he says quietly, giving her an out that is real, not symbolic. Lily looks at him, then down at the lighter, turning it once before closing her hand around it. I do, she says. The answer lands without force, but it does not need it. The door opens wider. Inside, the old systems hum to life, screens flickering, data loading slowly from archives that no one has touched in years. Lily steps forward first, crossing the threshold before anyone else can change their mind. Ethan follows, not leading, not directing, just there. The supervisor moves to the terminal, pulling up logs, dates scrolling past in a blur until they land on the right night. The screen fills with names, times, entries, lines of data that reduce moments into records. Lily watches it all, not searching for confirmation, but for confrontation. There, she says, pointing before anyone else does. The name, the timestamp, the entry that should have been enough. The supervisor clicks, opening more details, the system revealing the sequence step by step. Intake delayed. No insurance. No immediate action. Protocol followed. Ethan's eyes move across the screen, taking in each line, each gap between them. Lily does not look at him. She steps closer to the terminal, placing the lighter down beside the keyboard, the metal catching the faint glow of the monitor. I told him to wait, she says, not to defend herself, not to explain, just to place the truth where it belongs. The room stays quiet, the weight of it settling in without anyone trying to shift it. Ethan looks at the lighter, then at the screen, then back at her, and for a moment, it feels like the entire night has narrowed to this single point where choice is no longer abstract. Lily does not step back. She does not reach for the lighter again. She leaves it there, between them, between what happened and what comes next, the object finally placed somewhere it cannot be ignored, the action itself saying everything she has not been willing to say until now. The screen stays lit long after the data stops scrolling, the glow reflecting faintly across the metal edge of the lighter where it rests beside the keyboard, untouched by both of them now, as if it has finally reached a place it was always meant to be. No one speaks for a while. The supervisor shifts his weight, glances between them, then quietly steps back, giving space without being asked. The system hums. Somewhere down the hall, a cart rattles past, distant, ordinary, almost out of place against what has settled here. Lily does not move. Her eyes stay on the screen, but she is not reading it anymore. She already knows what it says. What it cannot say. The part that never made it into any log. Ethan reaches forward first, not toward her, but toward the terminal, pressing a few keys with measured precision. The entry remains, but something else appears beneath it, a note field opened, cursor blinking, waiting. He pauses there, fingers hovering, then looks at her, not for permission, not exactly, but for something that feels close. Lily notices, just barely, her gaze shifting from the screen to him, then back again. It does not fix anything, she says quietly. Her voice is steady, but it carries something heavier now, something that has already moved past fear into acceptance. Ethan nods once. No, he agrees. He types anyway. Not a correction, not a rewrite, just an addition. A line that acknowledges what the system never captured. He does not read it out loud. He does not need to. When he steps back, the cursor stops blinking, and for the first time, the record feels complete in a way it never had before, even if it changes nothing about the outcome. Lily watches it for a second longer, then reaches forward, not for the keyboard, but for the lighter. Her fingers hover over it, then close around the metal, lifting it slowly. The weight feels different now, or maybe she does. She turns it once, the engraved name catching the light again, but this time it does not feel like something she is holding onto to stay in place. It feels like something she can finally move. There is a community clinic 3 blocks from here, she says after a moment, not looking at him yet. They take walk-ins. No questions. The words are simple, almost practical, but they carry a direction, a choice. Ethan watches her, the shift in her posture, the way her shoulders have dropped just slightly, not from relief, but from something closer to resolve. "You are thinking about leaving," he says. Not a question. Lily exhales softly, tucking the lighter back into her pocket, but not as deep as before. "I am thinking about where I should have been," she replies. He lets that settle, then nods once, slow. "They could use someone who knows how this place works," he says. There is no offer in his tone, no attempt to redirect her. Just an acknowledgement of what she is choosing. She glances at him then, really looks this time, not at the version she met in the rain or the one who stood at the front of her room, but something in between. "You are not going to fire me," she says. It is not relief. It is not even expectation. Just a statement placed between them. Ethan shakes his head slightly. "No," he says. A beat passes. "That would be easy." There is something else in his voice now, something quieter, more human. Lily gives a small nod, like she understands exactly what he means. The supervisor clears his throat gently, reminding them of the room, the system, the fact that the night is still moving forward whether they do or not. Lily steps back from the terminal, creating space again, but this time it feels different, less like distance and more like transition. "I will finish my shift," she says, almost to herself, then turns toward the door. She pauses there, hand resting against the frame, then glances back once. He had steady hands, she says, the memory surfacing in a way it has not before. When? He held this. Her fingers brush against her pocket briefly. Ethan nods, the detail landing deeper than anything written on the screen. "Yeah," he says quietly. "He did." She holds his gaze for a second longer, then steps out into the hallway, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft, final sound that does not feel like an ending, but something closer to a line being drawn in the right place. The night continues, as it always does, but it does not feel the same. Later, just before dawn, the bus stop sits empty again, the plastic panels still scratched, the bench still worn, but the air feels different in that quiet, early hour. Across the street, a small flame flickers once, brief and steady, then disappears with a soft click. If you have ever carried something longer than you should have, you probably understand what it means to finally set it down. Follow along if this stayed with you. Thank you.